my earliest memory is my dad leaving us when I was 7. And so I just remember my mom and my brother and I going to the grocery store, I think, and coming home and seeing like the hangers all over the floor in the closet. And he was an early computer guy, so there was like cords everywhere and stuff. This would have been 88. And so, yeah, I just remember like instinctively grabbing my little brother, taking him out of the room, and then just hearing my mom cry. So I met my daughter's father in 2010, and I had been clean from stimulant drugs for a little while. I was still smoking weed, I was still drinking, but in my mind, the stimulant drugs were the problem. And so if I could stay away from the coke, I would be okay. And so when I met him, we weren't doing any of that. And I just remember it was probably 2011 that I found out that he was getting high on meth and selling, and so again, because I always had that need for acceptance, and I thought and I loved him, so I joined right in. I'd never done meth before, and that just became my everyday. I had never experienced the life that it brings, the darkness and the depression and the people and this, just all of it, and I remember that I was, I had distanced myself from that church for various reasons that related to sin and related to how I was living. And then when I got with Jason, he didn't want to be around them. He felt like they judged him, whatever. And so what did I do? I went with him. In September of 2011, I found out that I was pregnant. I'd never been pregnant before. I was 30 years old. And I just remember feeling like, okay, you know what? I got to stop getting high because I, got to go to the doctor and all that. And not realizing in that moment that was not going to be possible. And I remember telling him, this is going to be the last day. Like, this is going to be the last week that I get high. I'm going to get high till Sunday. And then that way it'll be out of my system for my doctor's appointment on Wednesday. And it just never happened. It was always going to be the last, and it just wasn't. And so there I was, and I was a person I didn't recognize. I was getting high against my will for the first time, where I just, and there was, and the other thing that was going on is I was living this very secret lie, because the only people that knew that I was getting high was him and me and this one friend of mine that I had who also was getting high. So I was very isolated. I was very alone. He was selling drugs, and so he was gone all the time. So I was just stuck in this dark, dingy apartment with my baby, getting high. And so, I she was due, I think, June 23rd, and on June 14th, she came. And so I was at my mom's house that day. I was taking a nap, my water breaks, and so again, I had never stopped, so I was dirty. And, I remember when we got to the hospital and they got me into the room, and, they're telling me like that if she starts to have withdrawals that are so severe that they will have to life flight her to Colombia. And I remember that being the first time that it actually occurred to me that I could be hurting my baby. I was so selfish, and I was so in my addiction. I was so alone that it hadn't even occurred to me. So luckily she was born, and she did not have any issues. She was born healthy and everything. But she was also born not into my care. She was a ward of the state from the minute she was born. And my mom had custody of her for the first month or so. And I just remember there was this 72-hour hearing where they, and the way that it was described to me is it's like a formality, and I remember that I was the only person that really thought, I'm gonna take my baby home today. There's no way that they can keep this baby. This baby has been my little homie, you know, like we it's just been me and her for months, you know, and this, like, they can't take her from me. I had to leave that hospital 2 days later without my child. My mom had custody of her, technically, for the first little while, and so I had to be off the premises when she left. And dude, I just remember that being like literally, even to this day, one of the worst days of my life. You know, I got out of treatment, man, and my apartment had been kicked in. Things were stolen. My baby was gone. My fiance was gone. It was, and I'm back to this empty apartment that is just drug infested. Like, that's all that it, you know. So, dude, I took the next 1.5 2 years, and I stayed numb. I could not get back up to get her back. You know, I remember, so I would go to these visits every week. I would go to these DFS visits, and I would be high a lot of the time, you know, and I would go, and I would have her bag with her toys, and I would have the diaper bag with the diapers and the juice cups and the snacks. And I remember these people looking at me so confused, because they're like, you know, this girl she has family. She has a place to live. She has all of these things. You can tell she loves this baby, and she can't stop doing drugs. And that was it. Like, that was, I couldn't get clean without her, and I couldn't get her back without being clean. You know, it became apparent to me, to my mom. I was mostly to my mom at first, but like that I couldn't be her mama, you know? Even if I'd have gotten out of jail, gotten my stuff together immediately, like, she would have been with this foster family she was with for 2 years. You know, so what, I'm going to get out of jail and I'm just going to take her from them? Like, it, you know, and so the thing that had started happening is, while I was in jail, my mom brought me this Bible, and I started getting into my Bible for the first time since probably 2006 or 7, and this is 13. And I'm just, you know, it was the very first time that Jesus showed me who he was through his word, you know, and began to infiltrate my thoughts and infiltrate my heart and my life, to where I was able to put her first finally. And I signed my rights to her, over to the family that has her still today. Because I just knew I couldn't be her mama. I didn't have any contact with my daughter, but I trusted him because he had chosen that, you know? And so, when I got out in 2015, I got out August 27th of 2015. I had no plan. My only family is in Arizona. My little brother had moved there. So, like, I'm just trusting you, God, you know? And so I went to a halfway house and, you know, got out, and I got my apartment, and I had a job, and, you know, pretty soon, man, I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I can drink a little bit. And man, I could not. So 3 different times I got high. And if you've ever gotten high, really full of Jesus, it is absolutely horrible. You know, for the first time in my using life, I was in this darkness that I had never experienced. I was seeing things, I was hearing things. I had never hallucinated before, but that was happening. I thought people were breaking into my apartment. It went on for 14 days, and by God's grace, you know, he used my PO, locked me back up, and I was locked back up for 33 days, and then I went to treatment for the 8th and final time. And man, I got out of there, and for the first time, I was truly broken. Like, it's like we've been talking about in that song, like, something has to break. And that's what it was, is this tie that I had to the world had finally broken. For the very first time, man, I had the desire to do things God's way. And so did he, you know? And so for the very first time, you know, God's taking this person that was promiscuous, that was, did not love herself, had no self-worth, you know, I didn't think I was I was here for anything more than sex, you know. And here he brings me this man that is willing to wait, that loves me so much, you know, and it just, and that was not lost on me either. So we had been married about a year, and I had told him, like, hey, I'm supposed to be a mama, I need to have a baby. And so I got pregnant. We had Delaney, who is now 3.5, almost 4. And so we had Delaney in June. In fact, a week after Katie's birthday, my older daughter, Delaney came. And so, you know, by that point, I had some fairly regular contact with them, as far as I had not physically seen her yet. They had not allowed me to see her. And let me just preface this with, none of this is normal. Like, the relationship I have with adoptee family is not normal. Through this process, we haven't really had anybody we can reach out to, like, hey, how did you do this? Because we don't know anybody that's done this. Like, they have no legal obligation for anything with me. They could have cut me off and just been done with me, and I would have had no recourse for that, you know. But they love Jesus, and they're forgiving people, you know. And so as soon as they started to see that I was becoming healthy, they allowed me, you know, they allowed me little windows. So they would send me pictures, and then they allowed me to see their Facebook so I could see their pictures, you know. And so for Delaney's 1st birthday and Katie's 8th birthday, they got to celebrate their birthday together, you know. And so I got to see my girl in real life for the first time. Man, you know, we destroyed the lives that God gave us originally. Like, you know, he had kids that he didn't do right by. You know, he destroyed things in his life. And then there's me, and I had a kid that I didn't do right by, and I destroyed my life. But God said no. You know, God said, like, the state said, you don't get to be her mom. But God said, no, you get to be her mom. It just isn't going to look like what you thought it was. And, you know, for me, and through my recovery, that has been so important for me to own up and accept the fact that, you know what, I don't get to be her mom. Like, but I can still stay clean. I can still create a life. I can still, you know, and so that's one of the cool things I get to do with women today, is I get to show them, like, look, you know what? Sometimes we don't get our babies back. Sometimes the consequences of our decisions, like, you know, in the recovery community, you see a lot of people that lose their kids. And we always want to see this bright, cheery, like, oh, everybody gets their kids back. They don't, you know, but we can still stay clean through that. We can still be faithful to God through that. And he blesses us in these ways that we just never saw coming. Today, we're homeowners, you know. Right now, currently, I get to be a stay-at-home mom and finish my master's degree. I get to spend every afternoon soaking up every day of this little girl's life. And I have full access to Katie, to my older daughter. Last year, for the first time, they let her come stay for an entire week in Kansas City. They live 5 hours from here. She came for an entire week. And then this August, she's coming back again for an entire week. Like, she calls my husband her stepdad, which is just, I mean, it's restoration is what it is. It's God said, okay, you know what? I have big things for you. And so we got to clear out all the crap first. You know, you got to clear all that out to be used by me. And so today, that's what I get to do, is I get to be a mom. I get to be a wife. And I also get to be used by him to show people, like, we can get past this. Like, today, sitting here, clean date is today. 7 years clean today. And it's just, it still shocks me. Like, it does. It still shocks me. Because I was told by a drug court counselor once in 2013, like, she looked at me across this room and she said, Danielle, I don't have any hope for you. Like, you continue to do the same things. I have no idea what to do for you. And so I don't think you're going to make it. And, you know, God said, no, I don't agree with that, you know.